Everyone dreams of living an uncommon life, and the best asset you have to achieve your dreams is you. Welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living uncommonly. We're also going to give you some tools and strategies for building wealth and for pursuing an uncommon path that is uniquely right for you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Wealth Podcast, where I'm your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I'm Aaron Kramer.
Thanks for tuning in. We're grateful that you're here. Thank you for taking the time. We just are two guys. We love to serve people by helping them achieve what their goals are.
Yes.
Fairly decent at listening. And so this podcast is because a couple of times has come up of how do you, or why do people end up discouraging you from going down this uncommon path? Like, what are some reasons? And it's inevitable. Like, Aaron, you could probably speak to your personal story. I have a personal story. So we'll start there. Of when we started going down this uncommon path, this uncommon journey, I felt like there was going to be a lot more people who were going to support Philip in this endeavor. It actually was true in some cases. In other cases, it was not true. There were some naysayers. There were some curmudgeons, as they say, that were very reluctant. And so today I thought it would be fun just to kind of flush those things out. Why is that in your life? And then also to prepare the listeners for when you get up on this ledge and you take the proverbial leap and try to go down this uncommon path, what you can expect, and then maybe put yourself in other people's shoes in order to have more grace or understanding for these things. So
and I think that, like, for the listeners that are going to take that leap, I mean, I just personally, I've always found if you know something's possibly going to come, it doesn't hurt as bad.
That's a great point.
Blindsided.
Yeah. So I think that was the reason why Aaron and I were like, let's just talk about this and just to have realistic expectations moving forward.
Yeah.
Because when this happened to me, and I'm excited to hear your personal story, it was not hurtful, but it was a lot harder because I didn't think this would happen. So it was almost like if I would have known about this, I think I would have been a lot more prepared to be able to handle this mentally than when it was.
It totally takes you off guard.
Yeah. So Aaron, tell us your personal example of when you started to go down this uncommon journey with whatever it was. It might not necessarily be, their financial services path, but what was your kind of headwind that you got hit with other people around you?
And mine was the financial industry because, we go into business. We all kind of own our own books. So we're kind of all business owners. Mm-hmm. And the first time I thought I was going to go do this, I got told by a good friend, he's like, Aaron, I wouldn't do this. Those are really hard exams. I tried to take those exams.
Oh,
I wouldn't do that. I was like, so that scared me out. And he is supportive, and he's also a client. So when I actually finally took the leap, he was there. So, but he was very naysayer. My dad was even like that a little bit.
Okay.
But then when I actually got into the business, what really shocked me was my best friend. His exact words were, "I'll do business with you once you're successful."
Wow.
And it hit me off guard real hard. I was like, wait, what? How's that supposed to work? Yeah. So you don't trust me that I can't take care of you? He's like, well, I'm just not going to put my money with you if you're not going to be around.
Yeah. Right.
And so that was super hurtful because we were boys.
Yeah. Right. And I think there's a pride thing too, that like, hey, when I do this, everyone's going to be at my back. I think that was for me. And I'll just speak quickly to my financial services path of like, well, I have such good relationships that they are going to be like, hey, I'm here to support you. And I think they would have been if I would have asked them specifically, hey, I need your support here. Maybe they would have, but I never went that direction. And it seemed like it was a lot harder to manage people's money than I thought, because I think like you and your friend, it was like, hey, I just want to make sure this is legit. This is going to be withstanding. Like he's going to go the long haul, because there's a lot of people that jump in this industry and it's a tough industry.
Yeah.
And I get that.
93% fail rate.
Yeah. How much? What was it?
93%.
Oh, yeah. Right? Okay. So I'll give you my really quick other story. It was 2 or 3 years ago. We went to Jackson Hole National Park. My family loves to do silly little hikes. We like to go to national parks, but we went to Jackson Hole. And there was a hike called the Amphitheater Lake and the Surprise Lake hike. And I should have done better research on this because I just kind of thought about this, but it's a pretty strenuous hike. It's really steep. There's a lot of altitude that you're gaining, and it's going to take a long time. And so I would tell people that we're doing this, and they're like, "Ooh," because it's a kind of a known hike, pretty popular hike, but people don't do it. And they're like, "There's no way you're getting your family up that hike." And at that point, I had I think he was 7. That was my youngest son, was 7, and then like a 10 and 11-year-old. So I get what they were saying. But we also had my parents. So my 68-year-old mother, no, that's not true. She was probably 66 at the time. And my 69, 70-year-old dad. And they're like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, and I was like, oh, that's all you need to tell me. I
was just gonna butt in here. I'm like, oh my gosh, for our listeners, if you know Philip, tell Philip he can't do something. And then you're just going to see a twinkle in his eyes like, haha, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was kind of helpful. It was encouraging for me or not encouraging, but it was more like fuel to my fire. Like, we're getting up this mountain. And by golly, we did. We got up to this lake's amphitheater lake. And granted, it was hard. It was hard. But we got up there and I said, hey, 2% of the population, this is what I said to my family, 2% of the population get to this point right here. And 2% of that 2% jump in this lake. And so it was me, my father, my 3 kids all jumped in. And so
did you get Erin to jump in too?
No, she wasn't doing anything. Okay. It was freezing, brother, freezing.
Okay.
But super fun, clear, and it was awesome. Fun memory. All right. So let's talk about the reasons why people might be a naysayer or might discourage your path. All right. So we have 4, I would say, key high-level things. And the first one I want to highlight for a reason, and it's the fear of failure. And people may oppose your, chasing after your dreams because they fear that you will fail. And then they might worry that the potential consequence of taking the risk or stepping out of the comfort zone will affect them as well. And their concern for your well-being may lead for them to discourage you in pursuing your dreams. Yep. So the fear of failure, I think, is one that I wanted to say first, because they might be right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think we should probably point out early on in the show that if it's your spouse that is the one that's discouraging you from this path, Aaron, what would we always say?
Don't do it. Like, you got to get her on board.
Don't do it. Or him. Yeah, you have to have your spouse be your biggest advocate, be your biggest cheerleader. So if any one of these ends up being you're the person that you are doing life with, you might really want to think about this. So I have this first because the fear of failure, I think a lot of people either put themselves in your shoes and they start thinking like, oh, shoot, like this is some blind spots that you don't see, right? Yeah. And so the fear of failing and it's going to affect me in some way is real. And so I think there is some kind of caution that you can take when somebody has this, well, I'm worried that you're going to fail. Then talking through that with them is probably the most loving thing you can do, and maybe checking some blind spots you may or may not have.
But I think there's another fear portion of that, and that's the fear of success.
Okay.
Like, I know there's people in my life that probably, if I become successful at doing this, why didn't they take a leap on their dream?
Okay.
They were too scared.
Right. Okay. So I would call that the second point.
Oh, there we go. Second one.
Any other things on fear of failure? I think that
I do expect more analytical people to be this route.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
They're very into the numbers, and that they probably know. Studies show your super analytical people.
Yeah.
Don't start businesses because they know the numbers. Yeah. They get hung up in them. There's a reason why that whole Philip, have you heard this? Was like the A students are managed by the B students, and the B students work for the C students.
Yeah, I have heard this.
Yeah, so
I love that because I'm a C student.
Me too.
Yeah, so that's good. Okay, so fear of failure would be the first one. Second one is jealousy or envy.
There we go. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Unfortunately, some people may feel jealous or envious of your aspirations and potential success. They may try to discourage you from pursuing your dreams out of their own insecurities or feeling inadequate. Man, I see this often, where I don't know if you really want to take advice from that person. He's been working at Wells Fargo for 23 years, and granted, all these people may have a valid response, but if you can somehow stay in the moment and start asking good questions, I think that you're going to benefit from this in the long run. Yeah. Or they're going to benefit from it for the long run by just asking them, like, hey, what is your biggest fear that'll happen? Well, and like they can't and won't articulate, well, that you'll be successful, and I wish I would have done this. Like, that's probably something that'll never come out of their mouth, but it's something that truly is they could be thinking about,
Yeah. I mean, you probably just see people not be as excited when you're telling them that, you're showing all your excitement. So these conversations typically, I mean, you're hearing Philip, and Philip's always like, I'm going to hit it straight on. Here, I've taken that leap. And when people doubted me, I didn't go ask them, try to work through. And it's like, whatever, think what you want to think.
Yeah.
But, so depending on what personality you lean towards, but, I think there's a lot of that. I think a lot of people don't like working for the man. We'd all like to take that leap, but so when you do, you make it real that it's possible, or you're brave just to do it.
Yeah. Oh man, jealousy is such a strong emotion. First off, and so I would say if you have ever been approached by somebody who's super excited about something, and you feel this tinge of like, I don't know if you can even feel like it's jealousy, but you're like, don't do this, I wonder if you really in the back of your head at some point when you're not in front of that person can think about, well, because I'm kind of jealous that they would do that.
Yeah. Because nobody wants to admit you're feeling jealous over something.
I would say that this career is one of those that you really have to curb your jealousy because you're helping a lot of people with a lot more money than I will ever have. And jealousy is something that could creep in. That's a side note, not part of the podcast, but I do feel like I've worked with some people in the past that have really struggled with how are they having all this money and success? Like, I want that too. And why don't we just be happy for them? Like, this is awesome, and how can I help you even get more success? And what are some blind spots? It was funny. You and I just had this conversation earlier, and one of our clients wants to be a business coach, and they're great. They just haven't had a lot of challenges in their life. Everything has gone well. And so I was wondering, and I was thinking about this, sometimes the best coaches are the people who've I failed so many times. I'd rather be coached by that person than a person who's everything's gone my way, Yeah,
everything's been really gravy,
Yeah. I don't know how we started talking about that, but it's interesting.
Well, jealousy. I mean, it is it's hard to be, it's really hard. It takes a big person to admit that you're being jealous,
Yeah.
I know, I get there. I'm just like, man, why? I just in our careers started going out. You're like, oh, why is this person making so much more money? Why are they finding so much more success? Now, I know me personally, this may not go to all of our listeners, but I wish I could remember what chapter or book it is. But in the Bible, it talks about you're on your own path. Don't look at other people's path. God's path is your path.
Oh, man. Right.
And so it's and when you look back at it, you always can tell it's oh yeah, all these things happen for a reason, so to prepare me for the future. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice. It probably could be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Just keep your eyes on the road of what you have in front of you and be joyful in it. Okay. So let's go to the third one, which is limited beliefs.
Yes.
Some individuals may have limited beliefs about what is possible or realistic. They might not understand or share your vision, and therefore they may discourage you from pursuing your dreams, believing that they are unattainable or unrealistic.
Yes. I have this to me is a huge one. I think it's the biggest one in my personal opinion, which means nothing, listeners. But I'm going to kibosh this. And I was telling Philip before the podcast how I wanted to explain this, and I'm not doing a very good job. But I feel like the people in our circles and the people that we know we humanize each other because we know each other. We know our flaws. Mm-hmm. We've seen us, you've seen them sick. You've seen them sad. You've seen them cry. They are totally human. But what people start doing is when you start seeing other successful business owners on TikTok, Instagram, or hearing stories about people, you don't see them as normal humans.
You put them on a pedestal, if you will.
Yeah, they're on a high pedestal. So like they don't sleep, eat, cry, have the emotions that we have. Like you see them as a superhero or whatever. And so when a friend or you want to go be a business owner, it's like, oh, it's not possible for you.
Yeah.
You're not a machine. You're not this rare breed. But like, they think that just because they're close to you.
Yeah. I think too, like this limiting beliefs, there could be something about you. It says more about you than it does about the person that's going to try it. Right? Having possible or realistic, like it just doesn't seem possible that you can do this. And like you said, like maybe we're putting business owners on a pedestal or all this stuff. And what I would say is kind of the opposite of like, no, like you need to figure out if it's possible. Because what if you don't? Like you're going to be laying on your deathbed someday, or you're going to be sitting there like, but what if, or what if I could have, right? And I think there's a perfectionist in here as well, that maybe the person that's naysaying or being the curmudgeon might be a perfectionist, right? Thinking like, well, everything has to be perfect. And I'm telling you, friends, this uncommon journey, nothing is perfect, but we're constantly learning, constantly. And we're constantly adapting and we're constantly overcoming. And honestly, we're making probably 25% of the right answers, but in that we're learning, right? And so why wouldn't we always want to be constant learners? And so this limited beliefs is maybe that, well, you can't be perfect. No one can be perfect. And maybe that's the fear that they have. And so, and then I also like that, talking about like, maybe they don't share your vision, like, hey, I want to be the world's strongest man. Aaron, like, I don't understand it. Like I couldn't even possibly put a path to get there. And I just don't understand the vision, right? But you do. And so who am I to discourage you from going down that path? You have a different set of circumstances. And so limiting beliefs. What would you say?
I think that's a big one. So
it is.
But I do like, it is really fun when you go down there because as you take this journey, like people will have those limited beliefs about you, but the fun part is when you take it, you can change their mind and open up their mind once you make it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I'm going to write a quick note so I can remember. All right, the next one is social expectations. Social often imposes certain expectations. Society often imposes a certain expectations and norms on individuals. People may discourage you from chasing after your dreams if they believe that it goes against these social expectations, or if they fear that you will deviate from the conventional path, which, hello, Uncommon, how are you doing?
Yeah.
They may prioritize stability and security over personal fulfillment and passion. And this is where I feel like you and me, and not to make a commercial about us, but I feel like this is where we meet people, right? Where are you? Where do you need? What kind of needs are you needing to meet? And some people can just jump off this proverbial ledge quickly, and they don't need to have a lot of safety net. Others have jobs, lives,
kids,
expenses, blah, blah, blah. And so they have to do it in a methodical way, a systematic way. But I will say the societal expectations, societal norms are real. And so when you say, I'm going to go do this, I feel like there's a couple reasons why, but like, what's the statistic? 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. Yeah. So there might be like a history there that don't do this. It's scary. But really what they're talking about is their personal risk tolerance, because we all have something we're getting excited about. Yeah. It might be different for everybody, but if you can tap into that and think about, wait, I could do that every day. Like you're kind of like, oh my goodness, like that's awesome too. So yeah, it's different than what the society is telling you, because I believe that even the educational system is kind of preparing you to be a man for somebody else, like working for somebody else. It's not telling you like, no, be the head dog here, like, like create something and let's start, really pouring into other people. And that's why I get so excited about the uncommon journey, because it's different than what, the conventional. Let's don't do conventional. That seems boring. But that's my personality. Other people don't have that.
I actually felt this in my life. I had gotten a job, and it was my first. Well, it was my second real big boy job, and I was working at Nestle, delivering grocery stores, pizza and ice cream.
Nice.
So making society fat.
Yeah, right. It's good.
Anyways, my neighbor, he was an old guy, retired, and he asked me, he goes, "Oh, is it good money?" I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good money. Most money I'd ever made at the time." And he's like, "Oh, don't ever leave it. Keep it."
Yep.
And I was like, I remember him saying that, and it actually just really bugged me because I hated it. It was a good job, and other people liked it. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? No, I am gonna be happy. Like, I am not doing this whole security thing. Good security." And the funny side to that for people is just because you got a 9 to 5 or whatever job you have, W-2, does not mean it's safe. Because he's passed away now, but I want to go back to him and be like, "Hey, if I took your advice, you know what happened? I would have lost my job because they got rid of those positions."
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I was like, no job is safe.
Right.
So when you think about your risk tolerance, just do note that your job is not secure. Wells Fargo lays people off all
the time. Yeah. And so does Principal, like these big companies. So this is interesting. I've spoken about this for a while, but we're grateful to be able to have interactions with a lot of people. And what I've seen, and this might just be my little, I don't know, test pilot deal or data center, but I feel like my grandparents were far more entrepreneurial than my parents generationally. Yeah. Right. So my grandpa bought a mobile home park and was like, "This is how I'm going to feed my family," and did it and provided in a great way. Super scary. In fact, I think there's a story. I might be making this up, but I felt like right when my grandpa signed the document to take out this huge loan, as they were driving away from the bank, my grandma was crying. I get that. It's real, you're all in here. And so, but my parents' generation were kind of like, well, nope, steady Eddie. You get a 401k, you might even get a pension. Anyway, and then I feel like our generation now is kind of you might see a balance of two, but I see a lot more people kind of going my grandpa's route of hey, I want to be entrepreneurial. Again, our company's name is Uncommon Wealth Partners. So maybe we're just getting these people that are awesome. Yeah. But, so whatever, fine. But I do see that. It's kind of interesting to think about. But
yeah, no, I think there's something to that.
Yeah. And man, I've always been the guy from young, if the fish are swimming left, I'm like, what's right? Let's go. I'm swimming upstream. That's just been my personality. And
that's totally Philip.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing that. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I'm not doing that anymore.
But I can see your parents with that question. If everyone's jumping off the bridge, you're going to jump off the bridge too. It's no, but purely just because everyone's doing it. I'm not going to.
Yeah. Right. So just remember, this is your life. And ultimately, these are your dreams. And so you have to really think about this, but just be ready and be, I guess, expecting that there's going to be people that you think will be in your corner, and they just don't come as fast as you want them to. Yeah. So I want to then now say that we've all been in the industry we've been in the industry for a while, you and I both. Yeah. And I feel like all of them have come around. Almost, all of them that I can think of, or I just don't hear about the people who are like, "You're an idiot, Philip." Sure might be some, but I feel like all of them come around, and a lot of them are clients, and a lot of them really are in, they are dialed in and really passionate about the vision that we're going to. So,
but with that, do know the hurt side does happen, but on the flip side, at least for me, I don't know about you, Philip, you speak to this, but you end up finding new, really good acquaintances and friends through this process. That you feel that step out of the net, woodwork to support you, that you're oh my gosh, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. That you would never expected.
Oh, for sure.
Well, it's definitely a teeter-totter.
Yeah. And, you just have to figure out what you want to do. But I will say that the community that you surround yourself with is important. So maybe have a mentor. We always say that that's kind of the cheat code of life. Have a mentor that will be able to walk you through this for when the things are man, I thought this person would be totally in my corner, and they definitely weren't. because that mentor is going to be able, oh yeah, I had that experience. Like, that can either fuel you to go further and faster, or it can really, deter you. So I think having a really solid community around you to be able to take some of these things is really helpful. So,
yeah.
And we're always here for you. If you just want encouragement, I just talked to an individual who's like, hey, how do I refer you? And we kind of talked through that. But at the end, I was like, what you need to know is like, every time I have a conversation with somebody, I'm not thinking to myself, how can I make them a client? It's how much value can I give them so they can go do this on their own? And he's like, well, that's uncommon. I was like, yeah, it is, but it's always worked, where if you give people what they want to do what they want to do, they'll come back when they're ready. So we're right here to help, even if it's just to encourage and kind of helping you down the uncommon path. Thank you for listening. But don't get discouraged. We're here to inform you on what this path looks like if you're ready to jump off the proverbial bridge, like we always talk about. So any other closing thoughts? Aaron Kramer, everyone.
No, I don't know, man. I think you said it all. It's all good. Just keep at it. Like I said, the mentor thing, it's a big thing. I had a mentor in the business beginning, outgrew, and I struggled, and then I found Philip. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things. You got to find someone that likes your weird and likes your freak.
Yeah.
Because when you end up being out on an island, it gets really lonely. So find your people. It's a big deal. Yeah.
And this uncommon journey is somewhat, it's desolate. Sometimes it's very lonely.
Yeah.
So if you needed encouragement, that's what we're here for. So you've been listening to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. I've been your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I'm Aaron Kramer.
Until next time, go get uncomfortable and surround yourself with great people.
That's all for this episode, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.